Hello, this is Renee, Blackstone Empire. Welcome to the second tutorial. We're going to focus on drums this time, but drums are a little bit different from bass. In the last tutorial, I could show you in like a couple of minutes how to make a sound from scratch and how to make it sound good. With drums, it's a little bit different because it takes a lot of tweaking and a lot of going through all your samples. I mean, your producer will recognize this, like, oh, boring, going through all your catalog. So I decided to focus on a track we did. All right, so that was the very beginning of Dawn of a Dark Day. We did with Foreign Beggars for our last album. The start of point was just an old loop, cut up and only used the snare and kick. It's actually two old loops, both of which didn't have any good hi-hats or rides going on, so we just used the kicks and the snares. Boosted the bass a little bit with this plugin. And a bit of compression. All right, that's the second loop. Yeah, like I said before, we only use the kick and snare in this case, and later on we add all the other stuff that's going on in the drums, and then we try to blend it all. That's pretty much the most important thing that we do. Okay, so a bit of compression, actually two compressors. So there you go, only to make it a little bit more punchy. We're just gonna go to the next version of this project. All right, so this is the 6th version. Lots of plugins that are not on this Mac, but you can get the idea. All right, so it's sounding a little bit different. I think we added some different loops to this one. Different drum loops, because we, as I said before, we only had kick and snare, and we searched for some other old loops and cut them up, put them in different tracks. And right, what we were going for with this track was just very gritty feeling, very old loops. So we don't always use old loops, but in this case we did. All right, let's go to the next version of this track. Okay, so here we are. This is version 12. Still just 8-bar loop, just adding stuff at this stage. As you can see, we have separated all the kicks and snares into different channels. We have the two from old loops in the top there. And we added battery snares, or snares in battery, and kicks in battery. We have the sidechain kick that is not going to any bus, so it will just be used to trigger the sidechaining in the bass group and the hi-hat or the ride, I think. Okay, so these are basically. Oh, this is the shadow kick part. Yeah, and it's flexible because you can make it longer there as your normal kick or shorter. So it's just a little bit better to use, we think. All right, so those are the 3 kicks. And 3 snares. And this is quite a useful plugin, the Sonoxys, because it's sort of in between a compressor and an EQ. Because normally what an EQ would do is, if you set it to a certain frequency to add a couple of decibels, it will always do that, but this plugin will allow you to react on the incoming signal. So you can have it do more or less depending on the signal that's coming in, and you can give it attack and release as well, so you have a little bit more flexibility. This is a very cool trick to add a lot of boost a lot of frequencies where you need them in the snare. For instance, snare always needs to be between like 200 and 300 to give it a lot of punch. So you give it a lot of resonance. So it's creating quite a dip now, but as a signal will come in, it will boost it. And yeah, these all needs to be set according to the material that you have going in. Slightly slow attack and long release, because you need that strong feeling of a long snare. All right, so there you go. That's quite a good plugin to have. Sorry, that's all three. Okay, so you see in here what that does. That's quite a good trick. So yeah, a big part of our drums is always layering, and that takes a lot of time. It's too much for any tutorial to show you exactly how we do it, but you know, you have to make sure that the tuning of all the snares are compatible, so that they all have sort of the same resonant frequencies, or at least complement each other. So of course you can always have an octave higher if you have like a little clap on top. In this case, we added everything, or made sure everything was sent to a bus, and made it a little less stereo. Put a limiter on there to keep it at 0. Boosted the high frequencies a bit, and gave it a little bit more compression. Set to 2.33. It's fairly mild, but it's, you know, everything has been processed before. So this is just to make sure they all sort of blend in together. And the whole channel is going to another channel. That's not something we always do, but in this case we needed it because the bass was so heavy that we actually needed more of the resonant frequency, which was about, you know, you saw that before, like 244 hertz. And in this case we added not an EQ to the main channel, but we did it on a separate bus, so we could better set the volume this way and made sure that it wasn't going too crazy. So in this case we made quite a dramatic peak. So this kick was added since the last version, just a little bit of camel fat on there, nothing too dramatic. I think we boosted the low frequency here, give it a bit of resonance. That's something we sometimes do, like boost frequencies that you don't actually want, but you need the distortion down there. So we boost it first and then take it out here. So here all the sub is taken out, and boosted is the frequency around 100, because that's where you want your kick to, well, kick. Especially when you have a really loud bass, loud sub bass, you need to have that area sort of empty, and you only want the kick to have the frequency of about 100. And the kicks also go to their own channel. Nothing too dramatic going on there. Actually, that's quite dramatic. Yeah, that's not the best EQ we ever made, I think, because I think one is sort of counteracting the other. Yeah, so sometimes during the process, as we're mixing, while we're making the track, you sometimes add plugins that you might have fixed that situation by just going back and fixing a previous plugin in the chain. So yeah, sometimes that happens. Not the most. In Holland we would say verdient geen schoonheidsprijs. But it sounded good in the mix, and that's all that counts in the end. In this case, we decided on these two particular EQs. And this is another trick you can do to add different layers, because the attacks can always be a problem. So if you have different attacks from either snares or kicks, it's sometimes better to take out a bit of the attack. And this plugin does it, but you can also do it in the waveform and just take out some of the attacks. So that's something that's, you know, just give it a little bit of a fade in, so they don't clash too much. This is it for this version. So here we are, version 64. Yeah, we just save everything. So every couple of minutes we save, because we, you know, either you do something that is not good, or the computer does something like crash, or, you know, you can always go back a version this way. As you can see, right now it's all been arranged, so it's basically full track now. All the MIDI stuff is pretty much audio now because it's a little bit more flexible when you're in the final stages of making a track. When it's audio, you can always make small cuts and delete stuff you don't need, or make little edits and reverse some stuff and stuff like that. As you can see, lots of automation going on in the group channels as well. So yeah, but we're just going to focus on the drums. Let's see. As they fade away. All right, so pretty gritty drums. By now, all the separate kick drum channels have been rendered into one to make it more manageable. So all the processing was done and it all sounded good. So then at some stage you have to decide, like, all right, this is going to be the kick now and this is it. I'm going to commit to it. So make it just one channel. There's no processing on the channel anymore because it's all been done before. And this way, if you have all your kicks processed, then you can always, you know, if you make a tune in the future and you think, oh, I might use that kick again, you have it neatly in that folder. Another thing we did with this one, we made a separate bus for the entire drums to go through, because we needed a little bit more filth, and in this case we added some tube emulation from the Nomad Factory guys. Sounds really good, but we only use this part of the plugin, just standard settings, don't touch the rest, and use the compression from a different one. Just standard settings, really. Lots of threshold, lots of gain. So the idea is that you have your original channel that you leave pretty much untouched, just a bit of limiting and just a little bit of PSP compression. And then you have the separate dirt channel. And you can basically go nuts with the dirt channel and then decide how much of the original drums you're sending to it. So it gives you a lot more flexibility than just adding plugins to your original channel. Just keep everything at 0 with a limiter, and then you can decide which frequencies you need to boost most. So in this case, we just needed to add some punch to the low and some to the high, and take out the lowest frequencies and dip the middle a little bit, because we had lots of rides and hi-hats, and you know, in that frequency you don't want too much of that. So that's it. Two drum buses that I'm going to show you what it sounds like. Right, but we need more than so. This is the so that makes quite a lot of difference, quite a big difference. So here's the compressor with the sidechain enabled, because it's a separate ride, so you want that feeling as if it is in a loop. So you want the kick or the snare or both to make it dip in volume. So you get the idea of an old vinyl loop, basically. We took out a lot of frequencies because, you know, it was getting to be a bit too much at high volume. So we made it slightly friendlier with those. Really only very low settings on the compression. Yeah, just that's about it. So on the limiter, on the master channel, we don't actually do a lot. We just have a really low settings for the PSP, which we sometimes use, not always. Add 2 dBs of highs, just in this case, because we needed a little bit of exciter. And add some stereo width, obviously most in the high frequencies, and nothing in the low frequencies. And just keep everything at 0 with a limiter. And we use a span to see, to get some visual, so you can see what's going on. And as you can see, the snare is making quite a big dent here at the frequency of about 250. So this is really, you know, you don't only trust your ears, but try to get as much visual feedback as well. We also have spectrograph, which gives you even more information, I think, because you can sort of focus on the colors. and you can see where the most important frequencies of that sound are. And especially when you're layering different sounds, different snares or kicks or whatever, you can see where all the frequencies are, and sometimes it's difficult to hear. So if you have different snares, then you all want them at around 200 to have the most punch, and spectrograph is really a nice way to see what you're doing. Okay, so that's about it for this tutorial. It's I hope you saw something that you found interesting. We always do things in a different way, in a different track. So this is just one track, obviously, just one example. And we don't use all those things that I've shown you, and we use sometimes different tricks, but it just depends on the track. So I hope you you have some tips now for creating your own drums, and yeah, we'll do some more tutorials in the future, and let us know what you like and don't like and want to hear in the future. So that's it for now. Thanks for watching, and bye-bye.